many of Rob Shetterly's portraits. So it's my delight and gift to introduce him to you. He'll be here till 2 o'clock, and then anyone who wants to accompany him over to the library can do that, where you can have personal conversation and even help him take his exhibit down. There you go.
Thank you, Mary Beth. You must be able to hear me. Sounds loud enough for me. And thank you to all the organizers of this wonderful fair. It's terrific to do things like this, and it's certainly great to bring as many people together to celebrate all the different issues that are being celebrated here today. Usually I just talk. Today I actually have written something, which I hope you don't mind. I didn't really get quite this, sort of informal in a way. And so I'm going to read this speech and or idea. It's more of an idea than it is a speech. And then I hope that afterwards we can actually talk for a bit, or we can go back and forth about whatever. This is something I was thinking about a few months ago, and the title of it is "It's Not Too Soon: Some Thoughts on a Memorial for the War in Iraq." And as a matter of fact, there is a mention, as Mary Beth was mentioning Eisenhower. He comes back in here, and I'll mention him again. It is perhaps premature to think about what form a memorial for the war in Iraq ought to take. Who knows how all this will turn out? War memorials are constructed after the event from a suitable historical distance, from a high ground in a present that affords a panoramic vista of calamitous past events. We construct reminders as we look back: a plaque bolted, a statue erected, a tree planted, a monument carved, so that the galloping present doesn't ride roughshod over the past, just dispersing it like a cloud of dust. We have to say, this is what happened, blood was spilled, we struggled on, both straighter and more bent because of our witness. So it may not be only premature, but also presumptuous to imagine an Iraq memorial now. But the problem with most memorials is that they are used to obscure history rather than honor it, romanticize and sentimentalize rather than enlighten. Often they are a continuation of the process by which people in power distort reality to achieve their ends, justifying an unnecessary, immoral use of violence through the heroics of people who were forced to perform it. In fact, people of wealth and power use memorials to enable a repetition of history, the myth of history, not to encourage learning from it. You know, when a country's history is doctored, it's the ultimate betrayal, a combination of cosmetic surgery and gene splicing, manufacturing a national identity that is part bimbo and part Frankenstein's monster, programmed to lurch from violence to violence with a plastic smile and demanding thanks from its victims. Thus, I think it's not too soon to conceptualize an Iraq memorial that tells the truth about history and offers a cautionary tale to the future, one that memorializes the truth rather than blows dust in our eyes. People who don't know and face up to their own truth cannot possibly conceive a humane and just future. The partial exception to what I've just said in terms of memorials is Maya Lin's great memorial to the Vietnam War, the Wall. It's like a black boomerang that spins back perpetually to slice into our hearts and minds. It is a cut clenched into the flesh of the earth like the wound stabbed into Christ's side. It refuses to heal. It is an open grave. It is a prone black comma, isolated from any previous or concluding cause. It's a sinister smile with 58,000 men and women's names etched into its black teeth. It is one of our greatest memorials because it rejects the false comfort of patriotism, celebrating instead the camaraderie of death and the weight of grief, the hard, polished granite fact of death. So polished that one's tears and anger shine back through the carved names and of the dead, reflecting one's sad and loving and helpless face. It honors the purity and equality of grief rather than the disputations, distortions, cant, and spin of politics and history. But therein lies its flaw. The wall assigns no blame, tells no history except what one brings to it. It isolates grief from accountability and thereby inhibits forgiveness. It teaches us that dead soldiers are an inevitable fact of the human condition. It doesn't tell our children that all these memorialized names were the cost of presidential lives and leaders who worshiped imperialism, not humanity. It doesn't tell us that this need not have been, that history at any moment can be shaped by good and courageous people to better outcomes. It doesn't tell us that these American dead were the collateral damage, as surely as 3 million Vietnamese, of a political and economic system that had betrayed them, that in fact they died in vain. Reality, truth, and accountability are the alloy that must be forged to build a future. If it's a future we really want, and not just an orgy of consumption in an eternal now. When people of power don't demand truth and accountability for themselves and their peers, they demonstrate that they have no respect for the system they pretend to venerate. They forfeit any respect that might be accorded to them. The longer we the people leave them in power, the more damage is done to the integrity of the system. And the longer the people leave them in power, the more we demonstrate that we have no respect for that system. So, I've been mulling over a memorial for the Iraq War. The project will begin by naming the crime. The monument will be called a memorial for the attack on Iraq. From a distance, it may look like an enormous bronze culvert with a 10-foot diameter lying on a flat field of grass, waiting to be buried in the earth to channel a river under a road. Or to some, it might resemble a discarded missile silo on its side, the hollowed-out trunk of a giant redwood, the dark throat of a cannon, or maybe a huge flute. Some people might be reminded of a birth canal. That would be good. It is meant to be traveled through. Besides its dark mouth will be a simple plaque that reads, "When men and women join the military and become soldiers, they sign a sacred pledge to defend the Constitution and the people of the United States of America with their lives. They also agree to take on their consciences the burden of killing and wounding other human beings in the fulfillment of their duties. Their government agrees in its part of the sacred pledge to demand these responsibilities of soldiers only when absolutely necessary for the survival of the country. A soldier who, having signed the pledge, refuses to fulfill his or her duty may be prosecuted at the government's discretion. Equally, a soldier has the responsibility to refuse an unlawful or immoral order, and a government that requires sacrifice when none was necessary should also be prosecuted. A person entering the canal and adjusting to the dimness will see that the only source of light is a series of small reading lamps, arcing like half-moons from the curved walls. Power for these lamps will come from a row of small circular solar panels fixed to the top of the memorial. They will be arranged as though they were notes on a musical staff, perhaps suggesting, "Last night I had the strangest dream." Each lamp will illuminate a quotation in raised bronze letters. The letters and the words will be raised to encourage people to run their fingers over them. The rubbing of many fingers will bring out a luster as bright as gold.